Hi, welcome back. Here we are with episode 9 of this long conversation about building a translator from BlitzBASIC to PlayBASIC. The last week, I've really been doing the ugly kind of side of this thing here. It's kind of fun to do the big things, make things that make big obvious changes, but lately it's just been small things. What I've been doing is building up some simple example code, focusing on commands within the string functions, the math functions, the bank functions, the file functions, image functions, and graphics. Now, whatever I can get done the next week or so, that'll pretty much be it for the first revision. Here we're looking at one called graphics. Sets up a graphics mode, calls a few different tests. This one's mostly just getting things about the screen, doing the viewport test. Then we've got some basic drawing primitives things, which I haven't noticed one difference we'll have to fix. And the last one there is about getting colors. Exit that. I'll grab that code. Here's our translated code. The included at the top is the wrapper. It's the Blitz, it's our emulation of Blitz function. So anything with BB in front of it is a function written in PlayBASIC to do that same behavior. Let's run it. F5. That's correct. Hit space. That's correct as well. This one's not actually. See where that circle is, that oval? It's in the wrong position. It should be pretty much the same down here. So how it treats its circle coordinates is different than what I expect. But the rest of it's all working okay. Here I made some posts about we've done string function. We haven't done them all. I think we've done pretty much all the ones we can possibly do. It makes sense. Bank and file commands, same thing there. I've got some test code there that does those things. Image commands. So what we'll do is we'll just select the image. I must stick the GUI front end on this thing as well, so you can just kind of run it and do translations and dump them out. This one's a bit more elaborate, this demo. I wouldn't get too excited again. It's doing a fair amount of stuff. You'll definitely be able to trip the conversion up in your real world code. So again, the translated code has a pointer to the wrapper. Eventually we'll have that will be probably an slib or something like that, and we've got a ball, which is hard code location there. So for these demos here to use, let's run it. So look. Okay, this is doing scale image. This does have a difference in it too. So it's using the animation image, which turns out that in Blitz you can have images that have frames attached to them as well. So I had to emulate that. I think it's doing it correctly. I don't really know. I'm pretty sure it is. Hit space for the next one. We're doing a copy image, clone image of the same thing, and we've drawn some image to a rectangle, and we'll grab the image. So all that's working as example. This one is the handles of the images. That's the default, which is the top left. Space will center it. And the last one is we're creating a new image with the library automatically centering the handle. That's the end of that demo. I won't bore you with every little nuance about what's happened. A bunch of the converter has changed somewhat. I've picked up some more situations that weren't being supported originally. Most notably, the changes have been in the wrapper. The main function here has nothing in it. it's this Blitz wrapper over here that does, where I've been putting all the code, so I can just include this into other projects. And you'll notice the convention there, so we've got all of the BB commands have our BB underscore prefix, followed by the command name and the parameters. App title, which is just title screen, and PB flip is remapped as sync. Now some of these I think do pretty much the same thing. Some probably don't quite do the same thing, and that's going to be the case moving forward between everything. A good example is the circle command being different. Actually, it's not even called that. What's it called? Oval. Oh, there it is. Yeah, so we're mapping this as an ellipse, but we're going to need to adjust its position here to get pretty much the same. And if you compare the pixel outputs, they would be different as well. That's going to be one of the things that will be different. So if your program is very particular about using graphics functions that light certain pixels that's dependent upon how Blitz fills, then that might be an issue for you as well. Can't do much about that without actually trying to replicate exactly how those routines work. I mean, if you're up to it, great, have a go at it, but that's kind of beyond the scope of what I'm sort of interested in doing. I will get the ellipse one to match up pretty well, but it will probably light pixels slightly different. Same as the line functions, same as all those functions. If there's any ambiguity in them, you'll find them. As you can see, most of the functions here are wrapped pretty much one-to-one. There's the odd exception where we've got image buffers and things like that happening. And our handle system there is different. In principle, what we're doing to emulate Blitz's dynamic sort of allocation stuff, or this kind of global handles concept, is we're just using the new functions to create images if we need images, and if we need any other resource, we do the same thing. Copy image is just two functions. Image height, there are some differences though. We've got this thing about drawing block and drawing image, which I didn't quite get. I'm not quite sure why we need two of them. But we seem to need those. This is emulating, so we can have images that are centered around the handle for each particular image, or we can have a frame within that image. So if you select a frame that's bigger than 0, it'll come from the frame set that's been set up when the image was created. I just thought of another command that I haven't implemented, which is the load anim something. I remember seeing that in the command listing the other day. I think it just loads an image as a tile sheet to these frames. So, I'm pretty sure that's what it does anyway. So in PB world, we're just getting image indexes back rather than these global handles. And if we load this animation, it would load it to an image, and there would be frames underneath that parent animation, that parent image, which is kind of what I was talking about doing with PB a little while ago. But I guess my take on that would be that you would have a parental and child relationship between certain images, so you could create a second image that doesn't have its own data is just UV mapped from the parent. So you can load in an atlas of animation, animation frames or whatever it's going to be, and then still use image indexes, but set the indexes to wherever you want it to find them from the parent. So that way that fits in really well with how GPUs like to work, and it will work within software rendering as well. So if you kind of can wrap your head around how that would be implemented and function, a bit like the sprite, exactly like the sprite UV commands in PB already, if you ever use them. So you can specifically tell it you want to draw a portion of an image, but not the whole thing. In the case of the image system, when you set up a parent-child relationship between your secondary image and the frame from that parent image, for all intents and purposes, PB would tell you that the image width is whatever the frame width is, and it would treat it like it was a separate image altogether. We sort of already have this actually. When you build a map, that's kind of what you're doing anyway. With maps, you've got this concept where you've got the big tile map, and it's imported and it's laid out in a fashion that's just easy to index pretty much. And then you can grab, and that format depends on the kind of driver you're running in the background. In PBFX, it's an atlas with UV mapping, and with different versions of PB to date, PB Classic we'll call it, I guess, the 164, 165, all those versions, they either have Blender based or they have software rendering, and the buffer's stored slightly differently depending on which kind of method you're rendering. This is the state of the wrapper, and some things are just empty. They don't do anything, so calling them and expecting them to give a great result is not going to be that beneficial for you. One of the things that the converter does do now that comes to mind, I'll just run that again. What are we on? This graphics functions one here. We'll run it. Something that we couldn't do beforehand, and I've added a bit more support for, but don't get too excited. You notice in this text statement here, we've got a text drawn at X0 and then Y30, and then with a bit of a string, and originally it didn't have the string here. It just had width plus graphics width, which is a way you can do, you can append numeric data with strings in Blitz. Now we don't support that. It's not a bad idea. I don't actually mind it. It's a bit less work than this, but having a concatenation sort of character might be a way to go. And when that would mean that any time it saw an operation between a string and an integer, or maybe a float, or even a vector in the future, it would do an automatic format of that. So you can kind of shortcut this. But the converter at the moment, previously it didn't know what to do. So this is an internal Blitz function. Because I've got some extra information in the keyword file now about what this function returns, it's able to pick up, this is a function call that returns an integer, so I should wrap this around here, so we get a bit more control over this kind of wrapping of the string functions around these to sort of emulate what Blitz is doing. It'll do simple expressions like this, but it won't do really complicated expressions, so don't get too excited. It would have to be type aware, and it's not. By type aware, I mean it would have to know the types of parameters being passed into all the functions and what the functions return, etc. What the return result, what the type of some operation is going to be, just in case it's used in a string function like that. It's too much work, and this generally gets you most of the way there anyway. That would get you all the way there. Depending on how we feel about this in the future, we'll see how we go. I do want to do a converter from Dark Basic as well. DB Classic would be really quite straightforward because it has no types, no very simple 2D support, but we couldn't do the 3D support. That would be the caveat there. For my own personal projects, that would be fine because I wrote mostly 2D games in Blitz rather than 3D stuff. In Dark Basic. But you could, using the same wrapping concept, you could build your own 3D back end and pretty much run Dark Basic code in PlayBASIC. You wouldn't be able to do it out of the box, but you could get your old stuff running in that, and then it's no longer something that doesn't exist or have a future pathway. We're pretty much at a conclusion now. I just want to picture and get as many of those really core commands in Blitz working the best I possibly can, and that will give most people, or give my own projects, the most chance of compiling and running, even though there might still be some work that's needed to be done. But most of the big things will be solved for us. There's still work to do, but we're running out of time. I want to get the layers section of this done so I can put a front end on this thing, get it up as a tool, and then worry about doing that. Worry about the next revision at some other point. But for the time being, it should be more than capable of getting people interested. That'll have to do for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.